And we're live. Welcome. It's November 1st, 2024. And we just had Halloween yesterday. And of course, the election is coming up this Tuesday. What a crazy year it's been for me, my channel, my mom, for our country. Well, it's been crazy times for our country for a while now. And people are just start hopping on now. So I'll just start to, and of course, I just want to remind people that do watch this after the fact. Most people watch this after I've live streamed. Reminder, typically Fridays at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, I do a live stream in which I do a live chat with the people in the chat. So if you want to have a question or comment directed towards me, if you ever wanted to ask me a question or get my opinion on something or whatever, this is the time to do it. But I also use this as an opportunity to kind of just update people on how things have been going here at MBR, here at the studio. And I took my very first trip since I went to Utah last December to attend that Bigger Tonight baptism in Utah because of my condition, which thanks again for your thoughts and prayers on this. I'm able to manage it. And I was able to drive the 4.5-5 hour drive to Tallahassee. And the reason why I went to Tallahassee this week was because I was invited to attend a tour. And that was my first temple tour. This very first temple I ever entered into was in 2009 for the Kirtland Temple. So this is the third temple that I have entered into within the context of the restoration. Would have liked to have gotten to that temple ceremony in Missouri earlier this month, but of course, unfortunately, we had the hurricane burrowing down on us, so we had to take care of ourselves and take care of my mom, and so I wasn't able to go and visit that temple opening, but I hear it was a success, and hopefully I'll have somebody on to talk about it at some point. Okay, so I'll get started here just to kind of get caught up on a few things, and then I'll just tell us about my few days in Tallahassee, which were very interesting, and ran into some very interesting people that even were non-related to the restoration. Just want to mention that I just got this book in the mail yesterday, or the day before, actually, the Keystone. Actually, I got this in the mail when I was in Tallahassee. That's right. So I think this arrived Monday or Tuesday. This is the key to the Keystone. Jonah Barnes sent this to me. Apocryphal Texts Unlock the Book of Mormon's Brass Plates. This is the second book that I've received from Plain and Precious Publishing, which is put out by the Paul brothers. And it's interesting because they have a very unique approach to writing stuff. I'm used to reading more academic stuff, and these guys don't take themselves too seriously in their writing. It's kind of humorous in how they portray themselves. I noticed Dave Butler kind of describes himself in a similar way in his book as well. So hopefully I'll get to some of those books soon. Again, I got a lot of books I got to get caught up on. As a matter of fact, Michelle Brady Stone reached out to me earlier this week, and I said, yeah, let's talk soon, because she wants to come on to kind of give her presentation that she wanted to talk to my audience about. So hopefully having her on soon. Leroy Thomas, usually the first to chime in, and interestingly enough, is in merry old England across the pond and stays up till 1 a.m. And now Leroy, we are going to be moving our clocks back. We do daylight savings time here. Now, does that mean, do you guys do that too? Or does that mean that it will be midnight next week when I do it? I don't know. But yeah, this Sunday, we turn our clocks back an hour. So now it will be 7:03. Yeah, so instead. So Leroy says, great to watch you live stream. Hope you and your mom, I love how he says mom, very British, and as well. Yes, it's midnight here, Steve. Now, does that mean, Leroy, when we move our clocks back an hour, that means it would be 11 at night, right, next week? I'm just curious, because I don't know if you guys practice daylight savings time or do it during the same time. Actually, for years, daylight savings time was sooner, but then they decided, let's do it the weekend after Halloween, so the kids have that extra hour of sunlight. It used to be dark, much darker sooner, and then they changed that. I don't know, it's probably been 10, 15 years ago or so, at least. I don't know how long it's been. And so that's why they do it now. Now, a lot of people say we should make daylight savings time year round. There's a movement to do that. Leroy says our clocks went back this week. Oh, okay. So yeah, so we have Halloween. We keep ours another week later so that the trick-or-treaters can stay, have some more daylight, and it's less dangerous for them. Okay, so I headed out to Tallahassee this Sunday. And this is so interesting. It's fascinating because I had a feeling this would happen, but you never know when it does. And I'll tell you what I think, what I thought would happen in a second here. But I want to share a couple things real quick. So on Sunday night, I was getting something to eat because I just gotten into town. So I stopped at a restaurant. And while I was sitting there, I actually ended up sitting next to this group of guys. And turns out they're kind of celebrities. They are part of the rock band, soft rock band, Yachtly Crew. And they were heading out to Key West. And this was on their trip. They're doing a tour, and they just did the night before in Alabama, and they stopped. And they do like yacht rock from the 70s and 80s. And turns out they have a very youthful following. A lot of young people are discovering soft rock from the 70s and 80s and really enjoying it. So they're like big celebrities. So it was kind of funny just hanging with them and getting to know them. And they thought what I did was very interesting, and I thought what they did was very interesting. So that was kind of a cool thing. They're called the Yachtly Crew, and check out their stuff. They're on Facebook as well as on YouTube and other social media platforms as well. So I ran into them Sunday night, and then Monday, I kind of just slept in, relaxed, took it easy. And then for lunch, I met with William Perez, who's the Institute Director in Tallahassee, primarily for students for Florida State University, although it's open for all college students in the area. And yes, Diamond Dave, this is a live one. Thanks for hopping on. And so I had lunch with William Perez, who's a friend of mine. I actually met him last year at the Mormon History Association. And originally, Dr. Kyle Bashirs was supposed to come with us on this, but then he got a last-minute job assignment, so he was unable to make it out to the thing. So I met up with William Perez and another student who was at this center who wanted to meet me. His name was also William, and he actually is from Liberty County, Florida, which is the most Mormon county east of the Mississippi, where somewhere about 20 to 25% of the population are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So I'm planning on making another trip up up that way to the Panhandle in northern Florida, because I want to talk to some people in Liberty County. And this is, like I said, these people have been here since the 19th century. They control like many of the businesses and community groups and so they're very influential. And so it's just a fascinating story that in the smallest county in the state of Florida, look it up, is about 7,000 people. It is now the last dry county. In other words, you can't buy alcohol anywhere or beer or alcohol or wine anywhere in the county. It's the last dry county in the state of Florida. And it's the most Mormon county east of the Mississippi. So I got to make that trip, but I want to go there knowing people. So I thought about driving out there when I was there, but I didn't know anybody. But now that I finally met somebody, I've got a contact. So I hope to drive up there and just kind of maybe talk to some of the people. What was like, why did their group in 19th century decide to stay in Florida and not go to Utah? That's an interesting story. Why did, and then how is it that this, you're in the middle of the Bible Belt, and yet you have this community, this county that's very much dominated by Latter-day Saints in the deep South. I mean, that's a really interesting story. So I hope to cover that. So I had lunch with a student and with William. And then after lunch, we went to see the gravestone, a large gravestone for the Witch of Tallahassee. So there's lore going around that there's this girl who some wealthy man fell for this woman. She was 19 years old, and then she ends up dying at the age of 23. And so he was so upset by this that he actually built this big gravestone to her, dedicated to her. And there's an Edgar Allan Poe poem in there implying that the poem says that she died twice, in which I guess witches do. So that's where she got the folklore of witch. But if you notice, there's people that leave objects on her grave, and they do that because she supposedly will give you luck to find a mate or a significant other. And so people who are looking for love in their life will leave her Bessie a gift and wish for luck. So that was an interesting story of Florida folklore. The northern part of Florida is the oldest part of Florida. Those were settled way before a lot of the southern areas were. It's much more like the South than it is in southern Florida. So the further north you go in Florida, the more southern it gets. It's kind of an interesting dynamic. Just a reminder, if those of you who have any questions or comments, please ask them in the chat. And if you want to make a donation in the super chat and get a shout out from me, please do. Now I'm going to talk shortly about my interaction with a general authority and an apostle at the temple. But I just wanted to ask one more thing. If you go to my Facebook page, I have this GoFundMe campaign that I just put up. My friends, they had terrible damage from Hurricane Helene up in northern Florida, and I've been meaning to get this posted. I've just been so busy, I haven't had a chance. I've got a link into it in the description, and I got on my Facebook page, And that there was an oak tree that smashed right in the middle of their house. Unfortunately, they were in the house when this happened, and it was very scary. By the time they started getting the tornado warnings, they put themselves in a closet. So they stayed in the closet. Next thing you know, that's in their living room. This tree, if they had been in their bedroom or their living room, would have probably killed them. So they're very fortunate they're alive, but they don't have homeowners insurance on this home because it's very expensive here in Florida. And they'd like to raise $20,000. So go to the link in my description and please help them out in the GoFundMe if you can. They haven't raised a lot of money, and it was my friend's sister that set this up. So Ed and Kelly, I wish you well, and I hopefully will get some people to donate to your cause. So again, you'll find it on my personal Facebook page, my Steve Pynakker page, and you'll also find it in the description on this video. So for those of you who are watching later, please just donate and help out with that. So in lieu of making maybe chat donations to the channel, if you got an extra 5, 10, 20 bucks or whatever that you want to send their way, it would be greatly appreciated. So then after lunch, I decided to take a tour of the state capitol because I had some time to kill. And one of the most interesting things is I get the brochure to self-guided tour of the state capitol, which is 22 stories high. So I go up to the top floor and I'm reading the brochure and I see, oh, there's a chapel. There's a chapel in here in the Capitol. So I thought I'm going to seek out this chapel. It's hard to find. I even asked an employee who works in the state, and he was almost like, I didn't even know there was a chapel. But this is the altar that is in the chapel. And on that altar is a Gideon Bible, which is King James Version. That's a Gideon. Of course, they give those away at the hotels. And the middle one is a Jerusalem Bible, which is a Catholic edition. And you can barely make it up. It's the third one. And that is the Book of Common Prayer, which is used by the Anglican as well as the Episcopal churches here in America. Well, I just happen to have my book bag on with me, and I just happen to have me an extra copy of the Book of Mormon from my friend Josh Gailey of the Church of Jesus Christ. This is published by your Pentecostal cousins from Nagahilla, Pennsylvania, the Church of Jesus Christ. So what I did was I sat next to all those books, a Book of Mormon. So now in the state capitol altar, I don't know if somebody's taken it or not, now sits a Book of Mormon, and more interestingly, a Biggertonite Book of Mormon, which most people haven't seen before. So I imagine it would be interesting to see if somebody actually, how long this actually stay. So that was there. I don't think people go into that chapel a whole lot. So, but I just thought, well, in the interest of interfaith, good faith, interfaith, I'm going to leave a Book of Mormon on the altar in the state capitol chapel. So it's always fun. I really do enjoy what I do. It's really fun. It can be subversive at times, but that's kind of me because I am an iconoclast at heart. And so I had a little fun putting that Book of Mormon on that altar. And it was a non-sectarian altar, so I hope they keep it up there. I hope they don't discriminate. Okay, so after I was done at the state capitol, I then stopped at a bookstore, still had some time to kill, and then I made my way to the new temple in Tallahassee. And I got there, and my friend William, who was with the religious, I got a ticket for him to go. And of course, Kyle Bashirs was supposed to come. It was supposed to be a threesome. There's supposed to be a trio of us, but it was just him and I. And then there were a couple other people. One was a volunteer, and then there was a couple who he just recently got named as a stake president in Georgia, and his wife, they came on with us with the tour. Well, I didn't realize who our tour guide was at the time. I'm not going to show you actually his card with his information on it, but I want to make sure I get his name right. I was able to, we got a tour of the temple by Elder Ahmad S. Corbett, who's a General Authority 70, and he's actually in charge, I think, or the overseer of the southeastern United States. And he's actually, I read his biography on the church website, and he was actually raised in Philadelphia, in a not well-to-do family, but a loving family. And his mother, actually, they were raised, I guess he was raised originally Nation of Islam, thus the name Ahmad. And he was raised in the Nation of Islam, and when he was a young child, the mom converted to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints via the missionaries, and so the family did too. As far as I know, the whole family did, but I could be incorrect on that, so I don't give bad information. So that was the story. I didn't know until after I met with him. But what was so cool was of course, the sister missionary showed us a video, then we crossed in the ward, and then we crossed the street over into the temple, and he was like, well, there's another group, so we can kind of go the opposite way. So that's what we did. And we went into, in the endowment room, and we went into the baptismal and of course area, and we went into the celestial room at the end. But what was so interesting is while we were doing the tour, and it was so funny because beforehand, Ahmad and I in the group, we were having Elder Ahmad, I'm sorry, and I were having a conversation. As soon as we walked into the temple, Elder Ahmad goes to me and says, "Steve, do you want to give the tour?" I got a good laugh out of that. Not loud laughter, I'll have you know, just so you know. But I got a chuckle out of that. And he was really interested actually in hearing about the Bickertonites. And I would later actually present him a copy of this. I'll tell that later on too. But yeah, he was very fascinated because in Quincy, Florida, there's a predominantly African-American congregation of people who are, I call them Pentecostal believers in the Book of Mormon, the Bickertonites. And I told him about this Quincy congregation. And I actually plan on my next trip up that way to not only go to Liberty County, but also attend a service there in Quincy and try to get as many Latter-day Saints and evangelicals to join me on that trip, because I think it would be very fascinating and a great interfaith endeavor. So what was so interesting was, next thing you know, who walks into the room when we're getting in the middle of the tour? But it's my friend, Apostle, Quorum of the 12 member, Neil Anderson, walks in. And we make eye contact. We walk right to each other. And he's like, "I remember you," because I met him, of course, at the Sarasota Stake Center opening last year. And we had a great talk. And so he says, "Steve, I just want to tell you, I really enjoy what you're doing with your channel. I've watched it, and I really think the interfaith work you're doing is really, really important." And I thanked him so much. And so it was great to see him again. And then later we were going in one room, and he was with another group. And then he grabs my arm. He's like, "Hey, we got evangelicals here coming." And I put my arm right around Elder Anderson and said, "Yeah, this guy, he's my friend." And really, it was a touching moment to see this. And honestly, I'd heard rumblings that Elder Anderson was there. And I felt like, "Oh God, you didn't send me all this way for not me to run into my buddy, my homie, Elder Anderson, right?" So I just had a real strong feeling that I was going to see him. And that's exactly what happened. And then I actually, afterwards, this is a tiny temple. So it's like a quarter of the size of the Orem temple that I went last year. So, but we ended up spending 90 minutes in there. And we actually went into the room that, the waiting room, and actually talked for like another half hour, 45 minutes. And Elder Ahmad was really interested, or Elder Corbett, sorry, was really interested in hearing my story and asked me questions about evangelicals, like why do they think we worship another Jesus and all this kind of stuff. And I explained to him, a lot of evangelicals believe in eternal damnation and punishment. And so for them, they feel like there's a lot more on the line. There's a lot more at stake, because they believe that, basically the Latter-day Saint Church is sending people to hell. I just said that's what many evangelicals believe. So in one sense, I said they're sincere in trying to save you, but I think that it's so often they just don't know how to properly communicate to you, and end up people get just turned off by the basic message of evangelical and conventional Christianity. And so people just don't pay any attention to what the evangelicals are doing in many ways, because of a lot of the ignorance and intolerance that's directed towards them. But I had a great conversation with him, and the couple there, they even felt like blessed that I was there and talking. I was blessed by them. And we were done and got pictures with Elder Corbett. And then I said, "Can I get you a Book of Mormon from the Bickertonites to you?" And he said, "Sure. I don't think he really understood what I was saying, but I ran to my car, got a copy, and gave it to him. And he's paging through it. And he's like, "Okay, so they have 12 apostles?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "Now this is an African-American church." I said, "Well, there's a lot of African-Americans, and they've had black apostles." But I said, it's a mix. And then he handed it back. I said, "No, this is a gift. I want to bless you." And he said, "Oh, thank you." And he took it. Then he gave me his card. And later that night, I emailed him, thanking him for the time and having the great conversation we had. And he emailed me right back and said, "I really enjoyed it too." Because I asked him for the business card. I said, "Next, I get out to Utah quite a bit, and I would love to maybe meet up with you on my next trip." And he was very interested in doing that. So I found out later afterwards from William, who's my companion on this, and he told me, he said, he's really popular at General Conference. I mean, he does a lot of stuff with the youth, and I think he's involved with the youth as well as I thought, oh, okay. And then I looked him up later that night. I was like, oh, wow, this guy is really interesting story. And I'd love to hear, actually, honestly, I'd love to have him on the program one day and actually talk with him and have him tell his story, because I really found it to be interesting. So ran into, it was great to run into and so the first interaction I had with Elder Anderson, he leaves the room and I go to everybody in the group and I say, he's my favorite apostle. And they all started laughing. So we all got a good chuckle out of that as well. So I didn't want to do a super long one today because I'm still kind of recovering from the trip. I've been really tired a lot. I actually fished out part of our roof out of our pond today that flew off. We saw some metal in the pond and I grabbed it and it looks like it's some from our roof that came off. We're going to actually have somebody give us an estimate to fix our roof, so keep us in your prayers. Okay, then let's see, what else did I do? So then I went and, oh yeah, so then that evening I got together with a couple. I'm not going to say their names because I don't know if they want to be known publicly, but I got together with a couple and actually heard from a few other people that wanted to get together with me while I was out there, but they were unable to at that time. But we went to Bowden's restaurant, which is owned by Bobby Bowden, the former coach of Florida State. And I had dinner with them. They bought dinner for me, and they actually, he's a Patreon of mine. He donates to the channel. And also I found out that he at one time was one of the mods on the Mormon Reddit, and actually gave me some interesting insight into some of the stuff that's going on in there. So it was a really interesting and wonderful conversation to get both of them. I got to hear their stories. They're both, they were both active in the church for a long time. She's sixth generation from Idaho, and he was raised in Florida, but his family is way back there. They're a prominent family in Washington State of Latter-day Saints. And they kind of told me their stories of their faith journey, where they're at right now. Currently, he attends an evangelical church with their daughter, and she's still kind of processing about what she believes and what her faith is going to look like in the future. So, we talked to a lot of interesting people who are at different places in their faith journeys, and I always just listen. I don't try to proselytize, and I don't try to tell people what to do or how they live their lives. I just want to encourage them to continually to seek and find a place where you can be in communion with the divine, where you can find a place where you can have a relationship with Jesus Christ. I think that's more important than anything. And let's keep them in your prayers. So then Tuesday, I just headed back out. And my mom was able to manage without me for out a day. Her hands are getting a little better. She actually drove for the first time yesterday and drove today. Went to Walmart and bought some groceries, so she's able to grasp onto the steering wheel. And so thank you again for all your prayers for us. It really is an awesome to know that there are people that do that. As a matter of fact, when they were showing in the endowment or in the endowment room, of course they have like the altar there, and he was saying that's where they put the names. So I said, oh, so where they pray over? So I said, so people have put my name and my mom's name on the temple rolls. It says that's where it's prayed over. And he said, yes. So I didn't know that, at the time. So now I know where that's done. So I've been prayed over many times at the temple rolls over the last year or two. And we do appreciate prayers from all people of all faith, and also good, happy thoughts from people who don't have faith or are non-theists as well. Words of encouragement are always greatly appreciated. So yeah, I just wanted to just let everybody know that I had a wonderful conversation with Elder Corbett. I think we felt a real close kinship. And what was interesting, of course, with Elder Anderson, Elder Anderson and I think we will continue having this dialogue. It's great to know verified from a member of the Quorum of the 12 directly. I've been told indirectly that he's watched the program from a family member, but to actually have it verified by a member of the Quorum of the 12 that they've watched my program and they appreciate the work that we're doing here in Mormon Book Reviews, that's a pretty high honor. And I am honored and, again, blessed by Elder Anderson like he blessed me last year when we first encountered each other and had, I think you could say, somewhat of a spiritual bonding experience with each other. And so it is greatly appreciated. And he is a wonderful man, and his wife is lovely. Don Hansen says, what a great story. Thanks for sharing. Yes. Danella Larson says, I would go on that trip. Yeah, there's a lot of trips, man. There's a lot of trips I got planned. I just hope that I can do them all. God told me not to make any plans, and I think sometimes I made too many plans, and that's kind of, this whole thing brought me to my knees. Just to give everybody an update, still getting blood work back. Apparently I got another doctors visited, but basically all my blood levels are good, except they have found a potential positive result for something that has to do with an autoimmune condition, which is what we're trying to figure out, what kind of autoimmune condition actually caused this hearing loss and the condition that I have with the hypoacusis and tinnitus, because I believe that it was caused by an autoimmune condition. So keep me in your prayers. Pray that maybe we can figure out what this is. Maybe we can, keep it from not affecting me anymore. I think the hearing loss is the hearing loss. That I don't know if that's ever recoverable, but I just want to make sure that I keep my good ear and, that I don't lose that. When I first came on, it was actually ringing in this ear for a second too, because I've always had occasional tinnitus. So keep me in your prayers, because it can be a struggle sometimes. And a lot of people that have this condition end up committing suicide. So my people, the specialists, are very pleased, I'm impressed, I guess, and grateful for the recovery that I've had. But people say, I'm so glad you're better. I said, no, I'm not better. I'm just learning how to cope with it better. So yeah, just keep us in your prayers. Mom and I have been through a lot lately with the hurricanes, with her cracking her wrist, with Mom and I both being attacked a couple of weeks ago by a very vile, twisted individual who I think now has learned. I don't know if they've learned their lesson, but they've never formally apologized to me directly. They did a performance apology. Keep him in your prayers, because obviously he's got some issues that he needs to work on as well. Okay, well, I'm just doing a short one this week. I just realized my computer's not even plugged in, so I might lose my battery anyhow. I got a little bit left. But again, I want to remind everybody, in lieu of making donations in the chat today, if you could go to my Facebook page or to the description and maybe help raise some money for my friends, Ed and Callie. He's good people, good person. He's got a big heart. He helps a lot of people. And if you can help them out, it would be greatly appreciated. They're hoping they can repair this house, and it's going to take a lot of money to do it. But their goal is to raise $20,000. So if you could help out, just go on my Facebook page, or go into the description and go to GoFundMe, and why don't you send some money their way instead of my way this week. Okay, well, we had a nice little turnout tonight. I want to thank everybody for coming on. We do this every Friday at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Remember, the most important thing is this. Remember, all the voices of the restoration will be heard here on Mormon Book Reviews.